welcome to our second podcast of 6'4" and More. We were off last week on spring break, but we're back. Before we get started, if you watched last week, Jeff did a little private investigator work on us and kind of got ahead of me and Dave on the deal. And so I took the whole spring break and did some PI work myself. Not to get to know Doyle so much, but maybe get to know the two guys that I'm hosting the show with. So first,
oh Lord,
Mr. Dave Hinman. Now let's look in Dave's file. Squeaky clean. Dave is squeaky clean. This guy is like the model state representative. Early to work, gets here, takes care of his constituents, does a great job. Then we have Mr. Farnan. Look at this file. Index, tab. Worth a lot of money, I found out. Worth a lot of money. But I'm not going to sell it, Jeff. I got other plans. You may not know this, but today is Mrs. Joanne Farnan's birthday.
Oh.
And I thought, who better to have this file of dirt on Jeff Farnan than Miss Joanne? So
she caused a lot of that.
She's not in here at all, believe it or not. That being said, I'm going to turn it over to Representative Farnan and maybe he can tell us about his spring break.
Well, yeah, I want to thank you for recognizing my wife for her birthday today, but my spring break wasn't very good. It was our 40th anniversary, the start of spring break, and I missed it, and she was mad. So I asked her, how can I make it up to you? She said that I could go buy her something that would go 0 to 200 miles an hour in 6 seconds. She wanted it in black with a little chrome trim. So I went out and started looking around town, finally found the perfect one, brought it home, put it in the driveway, put a big red bow on top of it, went into the house, said, honey, I got your gift out here in the driveway. So she comes out, she takes the big bow off of it, turns around, I was ready for a hug. She comes up to me and punches me right in the gut, goes into the house, hasn't talked to me since. I'm beginning to think she didn't want bathroom skills.
Oh, you're in trouble with
If I wasn't before, I am now. Well, I'm going to turn it over to our host, Dave Hinman, and he's going to introduce our guest and our game.
Well, excellent. Welcome again for our second episode. We appreciate the nearly 4,500 views that we had on our first episode. So you have a lot to look up to with Representative Peters and stand up to that. So with us today is Representative Doyle Stokes, representing Lincoln. Doyle Stokes.
Who are you?
That's my alias. I'm sure you found that out on your private investigation.
I did.
It was on there.
That's what we get next.
Doyle Justus. Doyle Stokes is an old friend of mine.
Yeah, we go way back. We go way back.
So, I want to welcome you. I know you represent mostly urban Troy.
Urban Troy, yeah. Urban Lincoln County.
Urban Lincoln County. But we wanted to welcome you, and if you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on. And
Well, I think, thanks for having me. I think you're probably going to be disappointed in the number of views you get. People know that I'm on here, so probably not near as popular as Representative Peters. But no, I'm the state rep for the 41st district, which just encompasses the city limits, or the cities of Troy and Moscow Mills and Lincoln County. And ironically, that is also the pretty much the school district that I taught in for 21 years. So it works out really good when it comes to campaigning. I got one school district in my district, and it's a pretty compact area, so I don't have to do a lot of traveling.
Well, as you know, we always investigate who we're going to have on here to see if they're worthy or not. So we've got some pictures of Doyle from his youth. So the first one, and I'll let you tell how old you were during this picture.
That was middle school, I believe, like probably 7th grade, I think.
Very good. And
Is
then,
that Doyle Justus or Doyle Stokes?
that's it. Doyle Stokes.
then we had
Yeah, that was my junior year in high school.
junior year in high school.
Yeah, getting
And
better looking all the
then,
time.
Yeah.
Wow.
This was senior picture or college picture?
Freshman in college, a
Perfect.
composite picture, yes.
And then this was, this was like a little investigating, but I found his kindergarten class picture. And I really found his teacher attractive. But the more I looked at it, it was because we're wearing the same suit. So we will put all of these pictures on at the end of the show so that you can, take your time and look at them and have a little better clarity on them. So I'll send it back to you, Dave.
Okay. So what we're doing in this show is we asked you for 6 items, and 4 of those are truths, 2 of them are lies. So we wanted to go through and talk to you a little bit about, get a little background on you so we can make our final decisions.
Okay.
So my first question is usually about family. So can you tell us a little bit about your family?
Sure. Been married to my wife Jenny for 26 years, and we have 2 children. James, who's going to be 22 in June 5th, and my daughter Grace, who will be 21 Monday. So that's my family.
Excellent.
We might have you read your 6 truths or 4 truths and 2 lies to us if you want, and that way the audience can know what we're talking about.
Okay, so the first one there is a 3-sport athlete while in high school. The second one was the grand champion market hog at the Lincoln County Fair. I should have added in 1986. Voted Mr. Congeniality my senior year in high school. It's in my yearbook, 1987. I was born in Troy, Missouri. However, my daughter was born in St. Petersburg, Russia. And I have shot 2,000 doves in one day. And the last one is, I have hiked from the bottom of the Grand Canyon to the top, which was nearly 10 miles, 2 miles difference in elevation, and in temperatures exceeding 128 degrees.
Wow. Impressive.
Wow.
Did you get it?
Somebody gave you 6 truths. Gonna stump you guys today.
This is tough, which I know, Doyle, you're an avid hunter. I know we've talked several times. You love to hunt, pheasant hunt, waterfowl. Maybe tell us a little bit about some of your hunting experiences.
So, hunting was introduced to me by my father, and at a young age, we used to do a lot of rabbit hunting, chasing beagles around, and as I got older, I got interested in quail hunting, and my neighbor had a Brittany Spaniel, and he gave that dog to me, and I've since learned that you never take a free bird dog from anybody. There's a reason. If it's a bird dog, somebody gives that to you, right? But I also gave it away. But I also learned when somebody gives you a free bird dog, if you try to give it away, it's hard to give it away. But if you tell somebody you want $250 or $500 for it, they're more than likely to pay you for it than to take it for free. So, but anyway. So I also grew up deer hunting, and my senior year in high school, I bought my first deer rifle. Had to go behind my parents' back to go and buy that. I bought a used rifle, it was the only thing I could afford. And I bought a bow about the same time when I was about 18. And my son is into deer hunting now, and we have a farm in Perry. It's a pretty good spot to deer hunt. And it's pretty interesting. I think about all the days when I was 16, 17, 18 years old when I would sit in a tree stand and not see anything but maybe a dozen squirrels. And, my son gets disappointed on opening day if he doesn't go out and kill a 140-inch deer, So, it's funny how things have changed, right? You mentioned waterfowl hunting. I used to do a lot more waterfowl hunting than I do now. It's just very time consuming, and actually it's a pretty expensive sport. So, contrary to things that I've tried to do in the past, I've learned I can't do everything. So I don't do as much waterfowl hunting. However, I did make a trip to Texas this year. Did a little goose hunting, which was quite a fun trip. We had to cut it short though because we had to come home right before that big snowstorm that came there at the beginning of January. So, but yep, love hunting and fishing as well too. So, and shooting a few doves. I'm not beyond that.
It looks like, just looking at a little bit of your history in your job and what you've done through your career, looks like you're an educator, farmer, now you're representative and still dealing in lubricants, I believe?
Specialized lubricants.
Specialized lubricants, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd love to tell you a little about that.
Yeah, this is not an ad.
And I hope our 4,500 listeners, will reach out to me. But no, with all due respect, when I retired from teaching, one of the things I didn't mention when I mentioned my family, you know, my wife's an orthodontist, so she's the breadwinner in my family, and it used to be kind of uncomfortable saying that, but I've gotten a lot more comfortable with it as our marriage grows, right? So she gave me permission to retire from teaching after 26 years under one condition: I had to get another job. And so I ended up becoming an independent sales rep for Schaefer Manufacturing, which is the oldest lubrication company in North America, and they are based right out of St. Louis, Missouri. Started there in 1839 with a gentleman named Nicholas Schaefer. They've got a really cool history. It's a family-owned business, and been in the family for all those years, and they have an irrevocable trust that it will remain in the family for many years, for the rest of my lifetime and many more years to come. So it's a great company to work for. It's a premium product. If you've never heard of Schaefer's, it's because we do not sell it in big box stores. Nicholas Schaefer and all of his other family that took over after him, they want everybody that buys Schaefer to have a personal rep like myself to have someone to call on as a reference. And so it's been a really good position for me to take, and especially with coming down here, you know, it's allowed me to continue because I am an independent rep. I can still take orders from my customers, and haven't had the time to go out and beat the bushes to get up new business. But one of the neatest things, I mentioned the history. Nicholas Schaefer had a good friend, Eberhard Anheuser. And one day Eberhard came to him and said he wanted to buy this brewery down on the corner, but he wanted him to go as a partner because he didn't have the money to do it. And Nicholas was a very generous person, and so he did go in with Eberhard on that brewery. And several years later, Eberhard came to him and he said, you know, he says, my daughter's getting ready to marry this guy named August Bush, and I would like to bring him into the beer business. Would you sell your half to my son-in-law? And Nicholas Schaefer basically said, sure, you know, there's a brewery on every corner in St. Louis, there's no future in the brewery. So at one time it was Schaefer Anheuser before it became Anheuser-Busch. So really, I think that's kind of a cool story.
Yeah, that's a really neat story. And what I took from that whole story was that your wife doesn't count state rep as a second job.
Well, she probably, actually, now that I'm a state rep, she would probably like for me to give up my Schaefer sales rep position because, you know, we have the house in Troy, we have a shed in the backyard, we have a detached garage, plus I have the farm in Perry. I've got some outbuildings there, and I literally have Schaefer products in every single building. And she just drives her bananas. You know? So she would probably like for me to just focus more on being the state rep.
Well, before we started, we all three of us, we wrote down the ones that we think were lies. So
Okay. I
actually picked 1 and 5 because I don't think you're an athlete. I think you're more like a drama club guy. And you know, being chair of conservation and natural resources, I hope you didn't shoot 5 or 2,000 doves in one day. So
I went with 1 and 6. I kind of the same thinking as Jeff a little bit, but you know, the athlete deal and then the hiking 10 miles, I just didn't know about all that.
I chose number 2, Grand Champion, Hog, and I chose number 3. The yearbook ones kind of get me a little bit. So shooting 2,000 doves in one day was questionable. But 2,000 is such a specific number.
It was over 2,000.
Okay.
I should have said over.
Okay.
And I hope the conservation department isn't like
So now we'll have you go through and tell us
Explain
which
yours.
ones, explain all of them, and
So, you know, when you guys asked me to come up with these, it was kind of daunting to me to do that. But once I got started, it was a lot of fun, and I actually had a list. I had to cut it down quite a bit. So one of them that I had on there was I worked 5 years with Senator Rusty Black, which I figured you guys might know. But, you know, I taught my first 5 years at school with him at Chillicothe. But so I kind of went back to high school. And at Troy, I graduated from Buchanan High School, which is in Troy, Missouri, now called Troy Buchanan High School. And it's a big deal to be a 3-sport athlete. We got a big plaque up in the gym, and if you go in, to a basketball game, you would read everybody's name that's on there that's a 3-sport athlete, and no, I'm not on that list. So you got that. But I was pretty small in high school. Really, I didn't start growing until my junior and senior year. So I was pretty short and a lot lighter than I am now. So the second thing was the grand champion market hog in 1986, and that is a truth. Okay. Lucked into that, and what's ironic about that is I still have the picture, and I was going to bring it for your file, but then that would have given this away, right? But in the picture, I'm standing with the fair queen from that year, who happened to be Michelle Niehoff, who is also now my sister-in-law, Michelle Minnemeyer, and she's the one that introduced me to my wife. So it's kind of a cool thing how things circle back, right? Voted Mr. Congeniality my senior year. No, that's not true.
I'll take 50%.
So I would have probably been voted less likely to succeed my senior year if I'd have had any votes at all in the year. So that was so 1 and 3 are the two lies. It's hard for me to lie, believe it or not. So number 4. I was born in Troy, Missouri, at the Lincoln County Memorial Hospital. So in 1969. So. But my daughter was born in St. Petersburg, Russia. And my wife and I, we got married kind of later in life, and we kind of struggled having children. And as a matter of fact, my son James is an in vitro baby, and he was our second attempt at that. And as soon as he was born, we decided we wanted to have another child. Because of the first attempt that failed, we'd already kind of thought about adoption, and definitely was something we were willing to do. And so as soon as James was born, Jenny went back and started doing the blood work to do in vitro the third time, and she just had a really bad experience doing all that blood work. She came back, she was really upset, and I said, well, we're not doing this. Let's go ahead and proceed with the adoption. She had a friend, another orthodontist friend, who his wife and him had went through an adoption agency in St. Louis and did international adoption, and so we talked to them. We kind of liked what we heard, and so we ended up deciding that, and it took about a year and a half to get this. Well, it took a year and a half just for them to. We were kind of hard set on we wanted a daughter, and at that time there were a lot more young boys available. We also, this was really from our adoption agency. They said it's if you wanted an infant, then you should just hold to your guns, and that's kind of what we decided to do. So we were kind of picky on what we wanted to do for our adoption, but so we had to do a big long study with the Department of Family Services and put a big dossier together, sent that over to Russia to the adoption agency people that worked over there, and they told us that we would need to fly over and spend a week or two and present our dossier to their family services, and then we would get to go to the orphanage and see the child, and then but we wouldn't be able to bring her home at that time, and it would take a couple weeks to do the paperwork, and so it was really about late October. Our adoption agency called and said, you need to get ready. We think you're going to leave next week. And so we got all our stuff packed up and ready to go for the first trip. We were excited. And at the last minute, they called and said, no, it's not going to work. No reason. Give us no reason why. Sure. The same thing happened in November. Called. We got all excited about going. So kind of just, was very disappointed again. And then in December, they called. And of course, third time, I'm like, I'm not going to get too excited about this. And then the day before, they're like, yes, this is going to happen. And so we got on a plane, and I don't remember, it was a 9-10 hour flight to St. Petersburg, and did all that. We spent 10 days there that first time, and with that we got to actually do a lot of touring of St. Petersburg, and it was a pretty cool place to be. And then they told us it'd be a couple weeks, maybe a month, and we'd be able to go over and pick her up. And a couple weeks went by, a month went by. It was actually April that we went to pick her up, and so we got there late late in the evening, and got up the next morning really early and rode. Actually, we got there late in the evening, went to the orphanage, picked the kids up, and we were with another family. and picked the kids up, and then went to they had an apartment where we spent the night, and then got up early in the morning and rode the train to Moscow, and we had to go to the U.S. Embassy to get all our paperwork done to bring the kids home. We had a translator. I know 2 words in Russian, and so we had a translator, and he comes back. So we waited in this van to for him to come back, and he went in to set up appointments for us the next day to visit with the consulate there at the embassy. And the one family that we were with, their last name was Wigan, and he says Wigan, and Rich raised his hand. And he says, "Okay, you have an appointment at 10 o'clock in the morning, and there's no problem." And when he said there's no problem, I kind of felt something something's going wrong here. And he said, "Justice," and I raised my hand, and he goes, "Yeah, we have a problem." He said, "I've never had this happen before, but your fingerprints are expired." And I'm like, "My fingerprints are expired? That's weird." But what it was is our federal background check had expired by just a few weeks. And so they told us that we could leave the country, but we couldn't bring Grace with us until our federal background check was cleared. And so, this was, we had emailed them, but it was before cell phones. And so what we had to do is go get re-fingerprinted there in Moscow at the embassy. And they had to physically mail those back to Washington, D.C. And so my wife, being an orthodontist, she had patients scheduled for the next week. And so her and the Wigans went home, and I got to spend an extra 10 days in Russia just with Grace, and which was quite a unique experience for me. So it's a really cool story. I've probably taken way too much time.
That's awesome.
That's a good story.
But it was cool, and I will say this on the plane ride home. I think everybody on the plane, I think the stewardess on the plane heard my story. And I think everybody on the plane had knew and was trying to help me, because I had a baby in one hand, a backpack with all of the baby stuff, and another car seat to carry her in. So, but it was kind of a cool experience just with the help that I got. So,
That's awesome. That's a
really
good story.
neat. Yep. Absolutely. So I did shoot over 2,000 doves in one day. Actually, I've had the pleasure to go to Argentina twice in my life and go dove hunting. Stayed at the Sierra Bravo Lodge. If anybody wants to go, it's probably the most awesome place to go dove hunting. The first time that I went, it was kind of a goal for everybody to shoot 1,000 doves a day. And actually, I'm not a very good shot. So that first time I might have hit 1,000 one day, but at most time it was between 5 and 750. But the second time that I went, on the first day, they must have just put me in the best spot. And they take you out about 10 o'clock, and by noon, I'd already almost shot 1,000 doves. So when you're out there, you have a bird boy that stays with you, and he's got a clicker, and every time you hit a bird, he clicks it, and so that's how they keep track. And then the bird boy, when you shoot, you just if you're right-handed, they prefer right-handed shooters. I'm a left-handed shooter, but you just turn the gun sideways. They'll have 3 shells in their hand, and they can just click, just load the gun really quick. And so that first day that I went there, like I said, by lunchtime, I'd almost had 1,000 doves. So I kind of set the goal then to get the 2,000. And at the end of the day, one of the other guys that I was hunting with, he came up, and my gun had started it would just shoot 1 shell, and it wasn't eject the other one. So I was getting a little nervous, and it was kind of intense too. And he's trying to make small talk, and he asked the bird boy, he says, "Where's he at?" And he's like 1,700, and he looks at me and he goes, "You're trying to get to 2,000." So he gives me his gun, and then by that time they just handed me the gun.
Right.
And it was getting later in the evening, and the birds were coming in to roost. It was just quite an experience. So they give you if you kill 1,000 doves a day, they give you a hat that says 1,000 Bird Club, and then I've got this nice silver plate that says 2,000 birds.
Wow.
So it was quite a fun experience, and with all due respect, if my wife would let me go back, I would go back again. It was a good trip. And then the hiking out of the Grand Canyon, that's a funny story too. My wife has a good friend in Washington, Missouri, who was an orthodontist. She's retired now. And we would get together, and she's always like, let's go on a trip together. Let's go on a trip together. And she's like, "Do you like whitewater rafting?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I'd like whitewater rafting, right?" And she's like, "Well, we're gonna go whitewater rafting through the Colorado River. Would you like to go with us?" And I'm like, "Sure." She's like, 5-day trip, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And so we went like in the first week of June, and it was about the middle of May, and we got together with them one night for dinner, and she's like, "So have you and Jenny been doing any hiking?" And I'm like, "No, we haven't been." She goes, "Well, Tim and I, we've been doing 3 and 4 miles a day." And I'm like, well, that's kind of cool, but why are you bringing that up? She goes, "Well, we're hiking out of the Grand Canyon." I said, "Jackie, you never said we were hiking out of the Grand Canyon." And so we floated for 3 days on a big raft, and then on the third day we ended up at Farnan Ranch, which is at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Spent the night there, and got up the next morning and hiked out 9.8 miles, I believe it was. And as we got closer to the top, there was it wasn't a park ranger, he was a volunteer, and he had a little thermometer sitting on the rocks, and it did say 128 degrees.
Wow.
So it was kind of brutal, but it's never a trip that I would have taken if somebody had said, "Let's go do this." I'd have been like, "Hell no, I'm not into that." But it was so inspiring when we did get to the top to realize what we had done, and it was a good trip. So that's a trip.
Did you
Awesome.
gain your experience whitewater rafting on the Quiver River there?
Actually, as a kid, we did a lot of fishing on the Quiver River, and some buddies of mine, we ran a lot of trout lines, and so we had a lot of experience there.
Fantastic.
Paddling.
Yep.
Yep.
Excellent.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for coming onto our show and sharing your life details. Really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you guys. I feel like you guys have really been nice to me, and I've been kind of nervous all week about, some of the things you might have dug up, But I'm pretty squeaky clean. Probably not as squeaky clean as representative. but I've been pretty good, and if you would have dug up anything on me, most those things were probably before computers and databases and things like that. So
We do appreciate you coming in. We appreciate everything you do for your area, your district. You're real close to St. Charles County, and we do a lot of stuff together, and I think you do a great job of what you do, so thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, and I've enjoyed our friendship that we've made the last 2.5 years. So
Absolutely.
And I'm a little envious. I want to now be Doyle Justus. Awesome.
You're not not to be arrogant. You're not the first person to tell me that. And I'll have to tell you, my brother-in-law, he lives across the street from us. He is so envious of me. He's like, "I want to be married to my sister." So, Andy, if you see this, I love you, buddy.
Well, you want to wrap us up, Jeff?
Nope. Join us next week again, and we'll have another guest for you.
Have a great weekend.
Yes.
We'll see you next week.